Joining me today to discuss industrial cybersecurity is John Livingston, who's the CEO of Verve. Welcome, John.
Great to be here, Sid. Thanks very much.
What are you seeing as the biggest challenges that companies are having today facing with OT cybersecurity?
Yeah, so I think it really depends on what the maturity level of that organization is in their journey. I think the largest group right now is in this stage of trying to discover what are their risks and how do I prioritize them. So many sort of have tried to figure out, okay, I know I need to do something, but boy, when I start to look at these number of vulnerabilities that are being released by CISA and others, what do I need to do about that? And so the biggest challenge we see is how do I get a sense of which of these risks are the biggest ones to prioritize so I can deal with securing my environment without adding tons and tons of headcount, right? So it's this prioritization to address the efficiency challenges that are really there.
Perfect lead-in for my next question, because for years I've been talking about OT cybersecurity management solutions, and I've characterized Verve as an OT cybersecurity management solution.
You were ahead of your time. You were ahead of your time. So if you go back maybe 5 years ago, you really had two types of things, right? You had the passive network anomaly detection, and you had basically people who would do inventory and tell you what you had. What's happened now is as people start to discover what they have, they realize, well, okay, the threat detection's nice, but I've now realized I have all of these risks. And it's not just I have vulnerabilities, but I have users and accounts that shouldn't be there. I have misconfigured devices. I have network segmentation, which really isn't what I thought it was, et cetera. And so now they're starting to say, I need to manage these assets just as I manage IT assets, ITSM, right? We need to manage OT assets in that same way. And so what you refer to, what we call OTSM, right? OT systems or OT security management. And so really that's what we're trying to help our clients with, is to be a platform that allows them to look across all those assets, manage risks, not just to know what the risks are, but to prioritize them and actually then remediate them and do something about them.
I noticed in the recent presentation, I saw that you used the term technology-enabled assessments.
Correct.
Can you kind of describe what that is, and what are the big challenges, or what are the big things that you find with those?
So what a tech-enabled assessment does is it replaces sending out dozens of people to each of your sites all over the world and trying to manually collect risk data through interviews with plant personnel or potentially reviewing site drawings and asset lists, which oftentimes don't exist. And it replaces that with technology. And so we've built Verve to enable us to do assessments remotely using our software. We don't need to deploy hardware. We don't need to send people on site. We can essentially allow this to be done remotely, obviously with all of the right protections for remote access. And we can not just tell you what the people on the site believe is true, but we can go in and identify every asset in the environment and all of those risks. And so what comes out of that then is what we call a 360-degree view of your risks. Everything from network to endpoint to, on the endpoint vulnerabilities and whether you have a backup or not. What we can then do from there is to build a very specific security roadmap to that site. And we can do that in an automated fashion. So you're not essentially dependent on individuals at a site to then try and synthesize out the findings. You bring all that data up to one place, and you can much more easily prioritize your risk across a global or even a dozen sites.
Do you see, because you deal with a lot of clients, do you see the regulatory issues, the regulatory agencies and insurance companies, are they changing the nature of cybersecurity investments, the pressure they're putting on companies?
Absolutely. So in the last couple of years, we've heard a lot about the TSA here in the United States, right? The TSA regulations. Obviously, with the new NIS2 directives in Europe, that's going to be evolving here over the next 18 months or so until each country decides exactly how they're going to deploy those. So the regulatory pressure, call it, is definitely increasing in OT. But I would say the biggest thing that we're seeing that's changing this is the insurance. So 3 or 4 years ago, we were talking to insurance companies about how they price, and basically it was a free-for-all. There was no history So they were pricing things really without any understanding of what the risks were. We had the huge run up in ransomware, Colonial Pipeline, et cetera, and the payouts were enormous. And so the insurance companies have really ratcheted up. Prices gone up, coverage gone down. And what they've done is they've created specific additional, essentially, applications for OT, requiring you to do all the things you were doing in IT security, right? All of those systems management, security management functions.
Oh, wow.
Are you patched? Are you doing vulnerability management? Do you have backups? And so it comes back to this security management need of, okay, the insurance company's essentially not going to insure me unless I have this data and, frankly, them doing something with the data. And so that's been a huge driver we've seen in the past, really 9 months, a year, really over the course of 2022, it accelerated.
You know, it's great talking to you because I get that kind of insight. But we're going to have to be closing here soon.
Yep.
So in closing, let me just ask, do you have any new initiatives or anything in the plans, or what are your new initiatives? And what should people see from Verve in the future here?
Absolutely. So, there's a lot of talk about AI and, the chat GPT and all that stuff, right? Well, as we have all of this data about the assets in Verve, we've built analytics to help clients prioritize, but starting to add the AI into that so that we can actually model out what are the greatest risks, not just on an endpoint, but across your environment. And so that's really something we're working on here in 2023 to really improve all of those analytics so that we're already able to tell you which assets are risky, but moving beyond that to really talking about which attack paths, et cetera. So we're quite excited about that next step.
Well, I look forward to seeing that. I mean, it's to get a better handle on risk, I presume.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly right. Using AI to get a better handle on risk.
Well, John, thank you for joining me today.
Great to see you, Sid.
I've been talking to John Livingston, the CEO of Verve. Thank you for watching.